How I roll.
We're live.
I got 5 on it. That's how we roll in the boys club here. I'm here again in the boys club. Thank you for having me.
Always.
Thank you for joining us.
Obviously, I can't get enough Annie, right? Like, I mean, at this point,
I mean, we've been on a lot of shows. This world tour is crazy, but this is not talking about the world tour. We are working with together to share what we're doing here, and Jaris is like a living, breathing example of going through our program, basically. Living, breathing example in front of everybody, and he does it with such grace. And you're open and willing, and it's such a beautiful thing. I love sharing with you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I received that. Thanks.
It's you know what it is, Jaris? You're so gracious and willing to learn and want to grow and evolve. And it really reminds me of where I was last year, right? Like I was looking for ways. Hey, Gary, I was looking for ways to grow, and I didn't, or evolve, and I didn't know how. And then this crazy Philadelphia blonde comes into my life out of nowhere like a human wrecking ball.
That's what I go by, crazy Philadelphia blonde.
And just like just turn my world upside down, and it's amazing.
Because when you see someone, at least for me, when I saw someone that so desperately wanted to,
I was very desperate.
No, so desperately wanted to grow and find himself, and he was so lost but so available to grow. And didn't even know it. I could see it from Randall's head is on my lap right now, just looking at me like this. He's so ridiculous. But it's Jaris. It's like you. There's nothing desperate about it. It's wanting to grow, that you bring that to the table, and it's such a. I see you. It's such a beautiful thing that. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
That you are open and willing to do this with us as we build this and share it with the world. It's like we're doing it with you first.
Jimmy Jam.
Well, one thing I learned is I know in order to grow, you got to be uncomfortable. You got to put yourself out there to let others know, like, what are my intentions? My intentions are very clear. And I'm glad that you all are able to see that, recognize it, and help.
So to your point, I'm going to say something about discomfort. So a lot of people actually live their life comfortably in discomfort. Mm-hmm. Right? So they're in this, I call it the ditch. It's like this sweet spot where you lie down and you're just like complacent and you're like, life, could be better. It's all right. Yeah. This kind of sucks when I get treated like that, but that's the way it is. That's how I am. That's how I'm wired. That's what happens. That's how girls treat me. Yeah. That's how dudes treat me. It's like, that's where you get, and you just sit happily in that ditch and you don't realize how uncomfortable you actually are. Yeah. In that comfort of discomfort. It's like so backwards, right?
And then here's the other side of that real quick, and I'm going to cut you off just because I like
No, do it.
Here's the other part. Then we start settling, right? Then we start settling for the idea of maybe something better. And in reality, it's the same thing, just in under a different mask, right? And we're always trying to fool ourselves that we're making progress when we're not. And we have this illusion that we create for ourselves that it's a better opportunity or a better situation or a better job, a better boyfriend, a better girlfriend, a better.
Or it's going to be different this time.
Right.
This time's going to be different.
Yeah. It's always going to be different.
This one's different. She's special. He's special.
We don't change, nothing else changes. That's the thing. When we don't change, nothing around us changes.
The truth is, if you don't look inward, and we were just talking about this before we went live, and I was like, shh, let's talk about it live. If you don't turn the lens around and look at yourself, you can't grow.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part is, not the hardest part, it's all hard, but is accepting that really it's stop pointing fingers. It's not her, it's not him, it's not my mom, it's not my dad. It's not, yes, these things contribute. They're contributing factors. Yes, your brain developed when you were young and your parental stuff and all that fun stuff, right? But the truth of the matter is you are who you have to look at. We talked about this last time. You need to look out for your inner child, for that child that needs to be parented.
Yeah.
That wasn't the way you needed.
And again, it's not pointing fingers. I mean, it's generational. It's a lot of things. It's not just one thing. It's everything, right? So there's a lot of generational stuff in there also. Like my parents are older. They're, they grew up in the 50s and 60s, so they had a whole different mentality to themselves. If your parents grew up and if your parents were old enough to live in the Great Depression, then they were even different in different ways. I mean, like, there's a lot of environmental things, and then you have cultural things, like there were so many cultural things and secrets and privacy, and everything's perfect from the outside looking in, and you never talk about what happens at home stays home. And like, it puts us in this box of looking to always hide who we really are, and the impact is never felt or known. Hey, Evie. The impact's never known or felt until we start getting older, right? Like, until we start seeing things different for ourselves, and it's a big jump, right? Like, when we get to that point, it's a huge jump. When we start seeing things and we start going from that point.
Can I ask you a question, Jar? When you were talking about before about yourself, you're like, I never put myself. Tell me a little bit more about that. What does self mean to you, and what do you want to work on with yourself?
Just taking it back, I never put myself first or thought about myself because I was raised to look out for other people.
Mm-hmm. Only
my belief, I thought that I was being blessed by taking care of everybody else, that I was going to get taken care of. And don't get me wrong, I still believe that to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Now I understand in depth, to get blessed, I got to take care of myself first, because I cannot take care of anybody if I'm not taking care of myself. And I know a lot of people who are very selfish. And I'm like, man, you're a selfish person. But when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, I am selfish, but I'm happy. I'm taking care of myself. And they're not faking it. So now what I'm understanding is to take care of myself means 3% is the percentage I'm on now. If I'm just holding on to that 3% that I normally would put into somebody else, like I'm the guy you can call for anything. I'll literally, if it's not nothing dealing with my family, my children, or something that I have to do, and somebody calls me, hey, what you think about this? Or do you got a minute? Yes, I do. Now I'm learning that I don't have to do that. I don't have to be that person. I don't have to put my life or self on hold to accommodate somebody else outside of what's making me comfortable. Now, go ahead.
So I just want to jump in and tell you that this is going to sound opposite of how you might really feel. But a lot of times when people do that, and I come from a place of experience doing this, that people pleasing and approval seeking is actually a self-centered, it's filling you up, it's trying to fill your voids with helping other people. So getting back what you get back, that appreciation, the words of encouragement, the words of affirmation, the love that you receive is filling you. But if you don't have that worth inside filled up, those voids can't get filled. You have to fill your own voids. So what people don't get is like, yeah, I'll do anything for anybody, and like go, and empty their whole tank for other people. They're doing it in a way, in a self-absorbed way, to fill themselves up, to get that extra validation. So if you turn the lens on yourself and realize you have to take care of yourself just like that, you'll fill your worth cup, and then you can give to other people. And then it's real. It's not to get back anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's the spot that I'm in now. Now that I'm learning how to take care of myself first, is like when I do look out for somebody else or whatever the case may be, I'm able to do it now in a graceful way, in a manner that is really going to help them get to the point that they're looking for, because I'm not doing it out of, okay, I feel like I have an obligation. I'm doing it from a spot of where I love myself now. I know my self-worth, and I can see that you are trying. So I'm going to give you some information that was passed down to me, like we're doing now, and I know that's going to help propel you forward, because I'm in a whole different mindset now. I'm so spiritual now that I understand what's going on. I knew why people acted the way they acted, but I thought it was my duty, because I understand where you're coming from. So I have to be the one to put myself on the line, tire myself.
So did I.
No, I don't have to do that now.
You don't have to do that, Jaris, to have worth.
Yes, ma'am.
You are worthy without doing that. You have a self-love without trying to get people to like you and know you and appreciate you. You are appreciated and loved without all that, without doing those things. Doing those things are are great. I'm all about giving and empathizing and being compassionate and loving. And I'm all about that. But until I saw myself and my worth as important and realized that I was just as worth it if I wasn't getting that getting that back. I wasn't getting that back. That doesn't make me worthy because people like me. It just makes people that at that moment like me. But that doesn't give me worth. That doesn't make me Annie.
Right.
What makes me me is everything right here, my own worth. That's what makes me me, my core values, what I live my life based on, truth and honesty and empathy and personal freedom. These are the core values I've discovered by digging deep into me and who I am. That way, when I give, it's totally selfless. It's not expecting anything back.
Yeah. And now I get that now because some of the people were manipulating me because they knew already. I can go to Jaris, Cap, whatever, and he's going to do it.
He's going to do it.
Get anything, money, time, anything that I need, no matter what he's got going on. If he's not with his family, and I would hear people break me down, say, look, I know I can come to you. My cousin and I was talking one day. He said, cuz I was out here, running the streets, doing whatever, blowing my money, and I would come to you just because I knew you was a good person. You was going to give me money. Even though I didn't really need it, he was living his life like that. And then he said what stopped him, he realized that he's hurting himself by even putting himself in that position. But
he wasn't aligning with his core values.
I'm on now. This is what got me thinking like this. I kept bumping my head doing the same mistake in relationships. The people, the females I would date and go after, I was making the same. And I said, okay, it's got to be something that I'm trying to learn because I'm the only one suffering. They living their life and, doing whatever. And it's funny to them. And I'm like, it's not funny to me. I'm over here toe all up. And I said, okay, what is wrong with you? I was not putting myself first. I didn't know my own value because a lot of the people that I dated, I wouldn't even give them the time of day now because I understand where I'm at. But I didn't know. I had to figure that out. And that was part of me understanding who I was. And this is what's so beautiful about this journey. I'm understanding more and more who I am. And now I'm like, wow, I have to protect this now because I get it.
Tell me about that letter that you wrote from last week. We said you needed to write, the next step of your journey was to write a letter to your inner child. Tell me about that.
Like you said, you called it. That letter, I started out writing and thinking it was going to be cool, but I learned so much. It was a breathtaking, that's a moment I will never forget in my life because I began to learn a few things about myself. One thing I learned that I was being super, super hard on myself. For no reason. That's the number one thing I learned. Like, Jaris, you a strong dude, man. All the stuff that you went through and you still being negative towards yourself. I had to apologize to myself for being so mean. Then I had to realize two things. I realized that I was not alone doing any of this. My anxiety, depression, whatever I went through, even as a child, I realized, man, you weren't alone that whole time. Also, looking back, I learned the amount of self-love that I do got. I was putting it for everybody else. I do love myself. That's why I do what I do for everybody else because I love that. And that letter really showed me. I burned it after I finished writing it. It was 2 pages, and I just was really writing and just listening as the memories were coming back. My childhood memories. I'm like, first, I've been through a lot. I was traumatized. Emotionally, just different things going on that I put in the back of my mind that I didn't even never knew that I had went through, even as a child. I'm talking about like 3 and 4 years old, stuff was just popping up. I said, okay, this is why you act the way you act. And not getting that love that I felt, I also realized I can't blame anybody else because a lot of the love or whatever I was missing, because I was so scared to speak up. It wasn't like there was nobody in my corner. I got a strong family. My mama, all my brothers and sisters, my daddy, we very tight. But I was so shy and so scared that I kept my mouth closed. So how would anybody know what I was going through? And that was something that I realized about me today. Looking at little Jaris thinks that people should automatically know what's going on with him without having to say anything. But I had to realize 9 times out of 10, that could be true from people who really, really know me. But I realized in taking self accountability that I have to voice. And that's where it come I understood from little Jaris again why it's difficult for me to ask for help. So writing that whole letter put me in the whole perspective of why I act the way I act, what I needed to do to correct that, and what I still need to do as time goes on. I still talk to little Jaris every day in the morning, let them know, man, look, I love you, man. Don't nobody tell you that I love you, because little Jaris went through a whole lot, but I was strong, very strong to go through that by myself.
So you in first of all, amazing. Like, you're my prize. Like, this is amazing. That was so great. Secondly, I commend you for doing it. That's a really hard exercise, and not a lot of people go home from the talk and go do it. So I commend you. Third of all, you showed yourself forgiveness. You showed yourself self-forgiveness. And that's such a huge step. When you can actually forgive your inner child for going through all that. It's like the backwards of what you think you should do. You want to coddle that inner child, and that's one thing. He needs love. Little Jaris needs love, and needs to be loved the way you need it. But also, he needs to be forgiven.
Yeah.
For all the pain that he went through, for the being quiet and not speaking up, for the ways that he wasn't what he needed to be for you now. It's this whole process of self-forgiveness, and you just took that step and ran with it.
And it made me get closer to, the spiritualness that I'm on. I got closer to that spirit, to that energy, because it showed me a lot. Like, you weren't even doing that, little Jaris. I was taking care of you. You were being taken care of the whole time. Nothing never really happened in my life, even to this day, that I couldn't manage. I don't, a lot of people got super trauma, super issues coming up, all kind of, parents just being abusive. I didn't have none of that. I wasn't bullied. I really had a good life. Outside of being poor, and that still wasn't bad, I have nothing to complain about. So my question is you now, and okay, I wrote that letter. All right, what's the next step? For the people that's watching, I got some people in the audience that is very in tune to what you are teaching and showing us.
So I want Mike to talk, but my first thought when you say that is that's amazing that you wrote the letter. But just the thing that you just said really brought something to my attention. That last part that you said. And it was almost dismissive of what you felt and what you feel at the time. Other people went through this. Other people went through that. I had a great life. Like, I want to honor. I want you to honor, and this is part of allowing. Honor what you've been through and what you've felt and the traumas that you've experienced and the life that you've experienced. We don't need to dismiss that. So when you dismiss that, you knock your worth down a peg. Oh, it wasn't as bad as so-and-so. Oh, it wasn't as bad. Listen, there's always people that have it worse off than us, and there's always people that have it better. But I want to honor my inner child and me as a grown-up now. I need to honor what I feel when I feel it and what I felt when I felt it. So understanding that and appreciating that and showing gratitude for all those things that we have felt and been through, seeing them as gifts. Looking at your struggles and your pains and seeing them as gifts, that's allowing.
I like that. Seeing them as gifts. I like that. What's up, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's no comparison when it comes to trauma, right? You cannot compare one trauma to another because it's your own personal relevance, right? Like, if that's the most extreme thing that's ever happened to you, then it can be just as traumatic to you as the worst thing in the world for anybody else, right? So I think you definitely don't want to go into the comparison game, right? And I used to do that a lot too, which in turn would devalue what I went through. It was devaluing myself, and it was ripping away my personal experience, right? And what I've grown through and had to heal through and everything else. Look, I know that there's people that had much worse trauma than I did, and I know there's people that didn't, that had much easier road than I did from my perspective. Okay. Now keep in mind, that's from my perspective. It doesn't mean that for them, it wasn't just as catastrophic. If it took you out of your path and it took you off of your journey and it ripped you to shreds, then it's just as powerful. Right? Like, I mean, there's no counting, there's no measuring, these things don't exist, right? Like, we can only see things from our perspective. just like we can only relate to others based on our perspective of what they're going through. Because me losing my mother and somebody else losing their mother is two different extremes, because they might not have had the relationship dynamic or anything else that I had with mine. My grandmother, my aunts, my uncle, I mean, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, I can go through a list of family members, friends, like many different crazy things, right? And you know, there's comparing anything to somebody else and what they're going through is just not fair to yourself or them. And at the end of the day, we really just need to we need to focus on healing our inner child, and we're doing the work on our inner child and loving our inner child the way that we wanted to be loved. And it doesn't mean that our parents didn't love us. It doesn't mean that, you know, friends didn't love us. It doesn't mean that, you know, it just means that we didn't receive it in the way that we wanted to. And now as adults, we go back and we have to love ourselves in a way that we can receive it. And that's where, go ahead, Andy.
Can I ask you a question, Jaris?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know your love language?
No.
You never took the love language test?
No.
So love language, there's an easy test you can take online. And the reason I bring it up is because there's only one, it's a real thing. There's only one real love language test. And it teaches you not how you love, but how you receive love. And when you can understand that, you can get a little bit more vulnerable. And when you can get a little bit more vulnerable with yourself, you can get a little more vulnerable with other people, and it deepens your connections with them. It deepens your ability to connect with others. And that is part of what's missing, is that you probably have a little block with other people in a relationship. And that vulnerable piece, because you're protecting yourself. It's what?
You spot on. You're right. You 100% correct.
So it's not them. You're blocking yourself from it. So I would want you to take it, because it takes like 10 minutes. And I want to know, so there's receiving gifts, there's words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and physical touch.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, there's a little gimmicky thing about love languages, right? But like, I find it amazing to understand how we receive love the most. When you can understand yourself and how you take in and receive love, then you can love other people. Then you can give yourself to others. But if you don't know how to love yourself and how you receive love, that's going to be tough to get intimate with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I have these issues, because I know a little bit of the language, because I was talking to these two psychiatrists a long time ago at this job I work. But I know the love that I'm looking for, you have to be brought up the way I was brought up, I guess, to kind of understand it. Like, I'm more into loyalty. I'm more into people who are like me, that I could say, I can hold your word for what it is. That's really big to me. You know, even in relationships, I know some of the people that I'm dating, I'm like, it wouldn't work, because I already see the red flags of the honesty and different things like that. But it's something blocking, like you said. That's why I was laughing, because it's something blocking me to still see it and still act like it's not there. So that's the issue with self.
So you're actually talking a lot about core values.
Mm-hmm.
And when we dig deep and excavate your core values and find out what makes Jaris, then you can align with somebody else. But what's happening in your relationships, from what you're saying, is their core values are not aligning with yours. Yeah. So it's bothering you. And those are the red flags. So you stop laughing at me.
You're right on.
But right, like this is because this is what we do for a living. Like, I see this all the time, and I see it in myself. I saw it on my journey, that I was not aligned with my core values. So I was acting in ways that were not, it was chipping away at my soul. Mike used to say that to me, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, totally aligned with my core values. I know what they are. I know how to do them. I've excavated them. Like, honestly, I didn't. I wasn't aligned with them. And I would slowly, gradually, it was like a woodpecker, chipping away at my soul, slowly. And I'm like, why am I not fulfilled? And he's like, one day you'll get it. One day you'll get it. And then one day I got it. And it's from this work. It's like, it's unbelievable that people think they know themselves. And the truth is, the next step for you, from what I'm hearing from you, is to figure out exactly what makes you you. What makes up the fabric of the being of Jaris.
And honestly, even when I first thought of core values and I first thought that I had a list of core values and I first thought I knew what they were, about 70% of them aren't even on my list. Like, they're not even close. And you know what it is? See, and Annie, I think we were talking about this yesterday. It's all blurring together at this point because I don't remember which conversation is which anymore. But when we're growing up, core values are imposed on us based on somebody else's idea of values, right?
Sometimes they don't have values.
Right.
And that's imposed on us.
Right. And we don't, as we're being raised or as we're growing, and it could be peers, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be anything, right? But as these values are being imposed on us, we start believing that they are our values. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes our subconscious, which just destroys us in ways because it does 80 to 90% of our thinking on autopilot. So it brings us into habits and routines and patterns that truly aren't healthy for us. And when
we've always done.
Right, that we've always done.
We're sitting in that ditch again, comfort.
So when we first start stepping into core values, the next thing we do is truly start kicking the shit out of our subconscious as it kicks the shit out of us. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And that's where self-awareness truly kicks in, right? And that's why me and Annie talk about me being hyper acutely self-aware and all this stuff. But it's so true. Like, self-awareness is so key to this. You need to understand your core values. You need to understand your old patterns and behaviors to such an extent that when you see something trickling that direction, you just tell your subconscious to shut down because that's not who I am anymore. I am not that person anymore, and I refuse to live that way anymore. And I'm telling you, Jaris, it is this drastic shift. And when you move into that shift, like Annie was saying during, our episode on her channel, that's when you align. And the minute you get in flow, everything starts flowing around you so easily. Because what happens is you start vibrating at such a high level that your vibrations attract high vibrations. And when your intent is pure and you're living in your core values, it all starts falling in line for you. And it's seamless. Like, it seems like this overnight process at that point. But nobody sees, the first 40 years where it was this constant, tormenting of self. I mean, truly tormenting of self, to where you're just being ripped to shreds by in your own heart and soul and mind, because it always feels like no matter what you're doing, you never feel that fulfillment. You're getting goals, you're reaching goals, you're making money, you're hitting these things, you're doing all these, you're receiving accolades, you're working for charities, you're volunteering, you're helping everybody. And at the end of the day, you're not helping yourself. Like, you're just doing these things to try and people please yourself, almost, to appease yourself and fill your bucket through
other people and other things.
Yes, through other people.
External validation.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that's when you align, that's where this bulletproof feeling comes that Annie talks about, right? This feeling that no matter what's going on around me, I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna move forward. And that's really what it is. When you hit that, and yes, Bubbykins.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
I love Bubbykins. Yeah,
that is what alcoholism is like.
That is
exactly. That's why we're both recovering addicts, and that's why we're both,
But it's all the addictions, because like we talk about all the time. It's the porn, it's the sex, it's the love, it's the attention, all these different things that fill those voids. Any escapism that comes up, it all just kicks in, right? So there's so many things here that just play a role in this. And when we start moving into self and we start living within our core values and understanding our core values, everything gets so easy. And no matter how hard things are around you. Now, keep in mind, there's been lots of things in the last couple of weeks that have thrown me out, throw me off a little. But you know what? Within an hour, within a few hours, within a short period of time, I'm able to reverse engineer it and go right back to center again. I'm able to find myself again. You know,
Self is so much more available to you when you do this work. You're it's like sometimes it feels so out of reach, and you're like, who in the beginning of the journey, who is this self that we're talking about? Who is this being? Who am I looking for? Who am I? I remember saying to myself, Jaris, not that long ago, who am I even? Who am I walking and talking and acting as every day? Because it doesn't feel like it's connected to who I really am at my core. And I realized I was living for other people. I remember when Mike said to me, you're living for other people. You're not living for yourself. I'm like, what are you talking about? I do what I want. I'm independent. I'm strong. I'm fierce. And I was independent and I was strong and I was fierce, but it doesn't mean I was aligned with who I am. As soon as I started to dig deeper and get in there and really figure out who Annie is at the core of my being, that's when things started to shift in my life. And that's when you let go of the reins a little bit instead of tightening things. So oftentimes what we do just as human nature is we get tighter and tighter and we hold on tighter and we try to hold that control. We're going to move this here. We're going to put this here. We'll make this money. It'll pay this bill. The kids will do this and they'll be here and they won't be sick and right? But it's like when you take yourself out of that and you say, what's going to be is going to be. That's when things start to shift.
Yeah, and it's drastic. Like, and it truly does feel like this immediate flip of a switch. Like the switch flips and it's like, okay, I don't know what happened.
But something's different.
I am not the same person. Like you don't even, but then it comes down to self-awareness to keep it, right?
That's huge.
And an accountability person in your life, somebody to hold you accountable, because it's very difficult to do by yourself, and it's very difficult to do unless you are so self-aware that you can really just fight through it. Like you have to be, because self-awareness is key, because your subconscious is going to kick your ass.
Jaris, I had it happen to me today where my subconscious started to just get in action and kick the shit out of me. And Mike was like, yo, hello, your subconscious is kicking the shit out of you. And I mean, I turned it around in a very short amount of time. It did not, I thought it was going to derail me because there was just too much at once and I get an overwhelmed feeling and I get anxious. And then I just started to breathe. And I'm like, you know what? It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. And I believe it. I believe it.
But you know what's weird about me and my journey? I believe everything's going to be okay. I know everything's going to be okay. And that's why I keep laughing. I'm not laughing at you, but I'm laughing because you are so spot on that I know it's only because I'm holding on. I know. I just feel it. My belief is so strong that I know everything's going to be okay. Mike says this to me all the time. Get out of your own way. And I'm trying to figure out what does that
really mean?
Yeah, get out your way. If you know everything's going to be okay, then let go and allow it to be. I don't care what happens to me. If I get depressed, get down, it never has lasted long. On this journey that I'm on, I'm also beginning to know the work that I first started putting in with my subconscious and just training myself to pick up on different things and to see if I was going left and I'm supposed to be going right, I'm only going to be able to go left for so long. My subconscious, I'm already aligned. It's going to eventually pull me right back to that right path just because I've trained myself to do that. But I guess what's so funny with me is I'm like, is this some weird fascination that I have with what's going on with the toxicness in my life or whatever? Like, I'm weirdly kind of fascinated with it because I know that if I leave these people alone, and I know I don't have to deal with them. So I guess I got to do what you're saying. Look at my love language, figure out my core values, figure out what makes me me, because I'm self-aware, but I still got this little bit of play in me too. And I'm like, what do I do with the play?
I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. You ready? Resilience is one of your core values. And I can tell you that because it's threaded throughout everything you say. I do this quickly. I always come back. I don't stay down long. That matters to you. That's something that makes up the fabric of your being resilient, snapping back, coming back from something, staying strong. Yeah, that matters to you. That's something that if somebody were to describe you or you were to describe yourself and what you feel in your heart, I think you're a fighter. Mm-hmm. I think you're a fighter. You're like, I'm not staying down long. And you're like, I know it. Like you have conviction. I know it's going to be okay. That's resilience and conviction. So these are things that as we talk through and you examine, you start to understand what makes up the fabric of you.
Gotcha. And one more thing, since we talking, and I can be comfortable with you all. Some of the people that I'm dealing with, right, I can see almost my insights are strong enough, like they're not ready. So if quicker you let it go, they're gonna come back. And I'm like, what's wrong with me that I'm holding on? I know I can see it's two people I'm talking about being Pacific.
Control.
I know. I just feel it. I don't be wrong about a whole lot of stuff, and when I really get in tune and feel, I'm like, all right, these people are coming back. But it's like, no, I don't want you to come back. I want it now. Is that what is that with me? Like that's trauma?
Control. Yeah. So you're exercising a piece of control that you're like remember when I said you're holding on to it too tight when you need to just let go? Like that's what I think you're doing. I think you're trying to you said they're not ready. When you're trying to control them to be ready, trying to put them in the spot that you want them in so that they'll be ready when you want, because you want it now.
Gotcha.
But remember Randall? What do? I drop the leash and walk away. Gotcha. Every time without fail, he comes running.
Mike been telling me that forever. He just told his exact words were, put your head down and move forward. But it's no buts. I'm not even gonna go but. That's just what I got.
Yeah. It's self-worth too. You got to know that even if you walk away, you're still worth it. You're worthy of more than that. Worthy of more than somebody not being ready.
No, and that's what I'll be looking at myself in the mirror like, you know better. You know better. Like,
don't beat yourself up though. Have compassion for that person. You're just trying to make it work because it makes you feel like have compassion at the same time as being a hard ass to yourself. Like I'm hard on myself, but I got to step back sometimes and be like, you know what? Like, it's okay. It's okay that I felt that way or I made that mistake or I did that thing. It's okay that I fell back into my subconscious today, even though I'm going through this journey forever. And like, when am I going to finally be there and not have to? I'm always evolving. That's okay. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, Jaris. Don't forget that.
Much needed reminder.
As is everyone around you.
I like that.
They're on their own path.
Yes.
So, sometimes letting go and, walking away is the best thing you can do for both sides. And if it's meant to be, that person chases because that person doesn't want to lose you and they want to catch up. But
if they don't chase, that doesn't mean you're not worth it. You're worth it either way.
It has no relevance to your worth. Your worth is your worth. And if they don't see it, that's on them. That's not on you. Right. And it's a matter of being able to hold yourself accountable to you and know that you deserve better than where you're at and better than what you're going through and better than how you're being treated or how you're being interacted with and it's not about blaming or shaming the person either. Right. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind too. Right. They're just on their own path.
Right.
And they have to learn at their own pace and on their timeline. Which doesn't always have to match yours.
We also teach people, Jaris, we teach people every day how to treat us. So if we don't treat ourselves with respect and honor and compassion, no one is going to treat you with that. We teach people, we model the way for how people should treat us. So if you continually allow yourself to be beaten down or taken advantage of, then hey, part of that's on you. Right? Then there's a point when you got to go, it isn't everybody taking advantage of me. It's me taking advantage of me.
Right on, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, we are what we allow, right? And And if we treat ourselves in a certain way and we're used to being treated that way our whole lives, that's what we're going to start expecting, and that's what we're going to start accepting and allowing. And that goes back to that staying stuck and settling, right? Because at some point, just because we know it's not good for us, just because we know it's not right for us, just because we think that's what we're used to, and we get promised it's better, we
Aren't
still fall
sometimes
into it. I see the question. Yeah, that's
highly.
aren't sometimes people unrealistic? Oh, they're all the time.
Absolutely.
All
All the
the
time.
time. It's not sometimes. It's every
All
time.
the time. All the time.
But it starts with having self expectations. If you have self
And
expectations,
self-worth. And
yeah,
self-worth. So what people do is they have high expectations of others because they attach their worth to what other people do.
yes,
So she didn't do this, so I'm fucking mad. Well, why are you really mad? Because you feel like shit about yourself. Because you
right.
feel like if she cared about you or if you were worth it, she would have done it.
Yeah.
But the truth is, what other people do should not affect your worth. It does a lot of times, but when you do this work, it starts to not. It doesn't chip away at you anymore. You're like, I know who I am. And if you don't do that, that's when you see that's control too. That's allowing other people to do what they're going to do and saying, that doesn't have to do with me. That's not about me.
So for the people that's watching that don't understand or know this work that you're talking about, the floor is yours. Talk to us.
Do you want me to explain breath real quick?
Whatever you want to do.
So breath framework is what Mike and I co-developed because it mirrors our journeys both separately and together. So we made something because we feel like if we don't give this back and show people how to do this, can't do it for them, but we can show them our journeys and be vulnerable, show them our experiences, show them our hearts and souls, and we can walk next to them as they go through the journey. So breath is B is for begin where you are. R is reclaim your power. E is excavate your core values. A is allow, not control. T is through, not around. And H is heal. So as we go through these steps, and there's a lot more to it, which I would explain if we have more time, but I will say that these are the steps and the letters that Mike and I have both gone through in our journeys and have reached now a path of healing, fulfillment, wholeness, oneness, joy, peace. And that's why people come to us, because they're like, where did you get this? Where did you get this peace? How did you find this? I want it. And I'm like, let me walk you through the breath framework, because that's how you do it. That's how we did it. And I've never been more fulfilled in my life. And that doesn't mean life isn't hard, because it is. But bulletproof. That's the best way to describe it. Bulletproof.
Okay, so real quick, not to cut everybody off, but this is a very important question. So Gary, my version of what I believe a toxic person has completely, drastically changed recently. What I believe a toxic person is anyone who tries to influence me to move out of my core values. That's not what I used to believe, but that's where I'm at today, because I'm living in my core values. So for me, it's anyone who tries to influence me to live outside of them. And even if it's slight, I'm not going to bend. I'm not doing it anymore. I refuse to sacrifice myself anymore to appease somebody else's wants and wishes and desires. It just, there's compromises, there's good compromises and there's bad ones, and that's not what I'm willing to do anymore.
What are the signs of a toxic individual?
Again, I think anyone who tries to impose their wants, desires, will, and power over you.
That doesn't mean that people can't have their wants, desires,
right,
and needs and wants, all
it.
of that. But so toxic is a really strong word. So people throw it around a lot. So toxicity to me is when there's actually malintent involved, when there's malintent in what they're doing and what they're saying and who they're being. And I think you learn that over time. Does someone have your best intentions at heart? Because that's what I feel the common thread is. When there's malintent and there's maliciousness or there's vindictiveness involved in what someone's doing, and they have another agenda, they have their own agenda that doesn't involve your best intentions, there's toxicity there.
Yeah. So, Jaris, I'm going to go to the next question, which is directed at you, bud.
Okay.
Put on your glass.
Wait, we can't hear you, Mike. Oh.
A lot of it I have to give credit to my upbringing and my parents, especially my mother. That compassion for my family, my younger brothers and sisters. I was so responsible for them at an early age. Growing up, I understand in order to lead people, I had to understand to be compassionate with myself. When you're compassionate, you understand, it helps you to lead people in the right way. Because a leader understands that it's not about himself, it is about the whole group. What was the other part of the question? Bring the question back up. Can you get it back up, Mike? I'll get the first
give me one
part.
second.
How do you command the room but also remain compassionate? It was, I remember.
Because to me, it's not. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just being me. So I can command the room because I get that I have a voice and I have something to say, and that somebody needs to hear this, because somebody will benefit from this conversation that we're having. Somebody will benefit from a shy person, somebody that grew up the way I grew up, had a similar background that can relate to me. A lot of times when I talk now, I get that I'm talking to people's spirits now. People can pick up on my vibe, my energy, so you just know, okay, Jaris, he's a genuine person. I can talk with him because it's not too many people that you can trust just openly nowadays. So I make it a habit. And a lot of it went on a personal journey. I took it personally because every job I've always had, I've always worked from the bottom to the top, and I was asked to be leader, even raise my brothers and sisters. So eventually I just took it serious. Like, okay, if people trust me enough to lead their companies, to lead their families, then I have something that they see in me that I'm still seeing. I don't really see it, but I'm beginning to see it. But I take it serious. So I just do a lot of personal training at home. I study a lot. When coronavirus hit, I used that opportunity to work on communication, to learn how to get my point across without putting my emotions in, learning how to say what I mean, learning to say what needs to be done. So a lot of it just goes back to yourself, understanding me. Even though we're having this conversation, I'm a little bit more advanced, but you all can pick up on that. And I just don't, I just know where I'm at in my life. Mm-hmm. I'm at a point where I get that people need leaders. We need healers. We need a lot of stuff. And I have volunteered to take the role to be that person that you can go to. So with great power comes great responsibility. Now I'm somebody who does a lot of self-studying, but most importantly, I have to credit where I'm at now, the success I'm having with my networking skills, with other people like you and, of course, Mike. We always got to give it out to Mike. So it's not really me. It's the people that I have been placed around that I'm able to be blessed and learn from you all. So I can pick up on stuff from other people quickly, digest it, and regurgitate it in my own way, something that makes sense for me.
So to all of that, I need to say this thing that just popped up for me, like intuitively just popped up for me. You're never going to have a problem with work and being a leader because you had to at a very young age. The issue is that intimacy block because your childhood was kind of taken from you. You didn't really get to experience real childhood because you had to take care of your brothers and sisters. So you were almost leading then.
Yes.
So taking a look at that and doing that introspective look at how I can almost give myself back that innocence of childhood will really help you.
Right. It will. A lot of it is like playing. Like how I'm so like, I don't play. But I need to play. And honestly,
that's my point.
Play. I want to play.
You want to, but you didn't have that. So that's an important part of you that is missing. Not because anybody did anything wrong. That's just the way it was, right? You took on that leadership role. You were the director. You were the executor. You were the commander of brothers and sisters. That was your role. You didn't have a choice. And the people pleasing and the approval seeking comes from keeping everything nice and not having chaos, keeping everybody in order.
I don't want to cut this off, but I do want to answer this question for Lee because I think this is very important also. And he asked this question. Lee, it's always about us. because we cannot change a single person around us. By when we work on ourselves and we change, everything around us, the whole world around us changes. So we're only reflecting out what others are reflecting towards us. If we work on us, then we start reflecting that out to the world, and they're going to change around us. And that's why doing the inner work and doing those things is so important, because it brings us to a point that we can then make our impact. But yes, it's always about us. It's never not, because we can't change anything else. We can't change a single person around us, but we can change ourselves. I keep saying us. We can change ourselves. And I didn't mean to cut you guys off, but and then Lee, as far as this question goes, what if your core values are toxic? Then they're not your true core values. They're just a surface.
Core values are not toxic.
No. I mean, these are just the surface ones that you acquired through your life.
Self-preservation.
Right, self-preservation. So, and I just wanted to hit those two questions because you are coming close to the end, and I didn't want to ignore them. And it gives people a reason to come back next week, because it feels like this is just going to be continued again. But yeah, I mean, this is all part of it, right? Finding our innocence, finding our childhood, finding, it's, yeah. How can I help you?
Going back to that, Jaris, and when you do meditation or journaling or anything like that on a regular basis? Can you mute, Mike?
Now, yes. Now I'm heavy on meditation. I'm heavy on not so much journaling, but I write now when it's something I'm trying to get out of, something I'm struggling with. Now I write it up, read it, burn it. But I'm heavy on meditation. I got super really started on affirmations.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you as homework, because we give homework right every week. I'm gonna ask you 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. So I'm asking for 10 minutes of your day to just free write in a journal. Just sit down and just write. Nobody's judging you. You don't have to read it to anyone. You don't have to judge yourself. There's no right or wrong. Just free write. So I call it the mind dump. So in the morning, you dump out what you thought and had stuffed up overnight. And at night, you dump from the day. So you're always keeping a centered, clear head. And you will find yourself in that writing. So between your meditation and your affirmations and that 5-10 minutes a day, do it consistently every day. You will find yourself and what you're looking for in your core values within that writing. It will come out. Because look what came out from one letter to your inner child. Yeah. So it's in you. I'm telling you.
I got set up overnight just off of that letter.
Right?
I had a magical experience. Like that was like, truly nothing I had experienced ever in my life.
That's the magic.
So Annie, that's to you, but on Facebook it said Kelly because that's who was supposed to be on tonight.
My contact lenses are so dry. Can you read it to me?
Kelly, I have one question for you, if you will. I would like to know how you can concrete your ideas to be so strong in your message so I can combine all three of your energies and become the best that I can.
How do I?
He wants to be so concrete in his message like you are.
Schedule a call with me and we'll chat. I'll talk to you about my concreteness. This took a long time to get here, a lot of work. And I will tell you that there is not one thing that I direct or suggest or guide people to do that I haven't done myself. Every bit of this journey that I am going on with my clients and with the people that are going to be in the groups and with everybody that I am interacting with, I have gone through it all. So I'm not reading out of a book and diagnosing. I'm not a doctor. I am living and showing you my living, breathing being that has experienced all of this. That's how I can get so concrete, because I've been through it.
And I can certify that. It's truth.
No worries, Bubbykins, I'm Annie.
It even says it on her wrist if you don't believe her. It is truth.
So if you can read Hebrew, this says truth. That's real. I stepped into it, baby.
Yeah.
I was dancing before we got on to some I Got 5 on it.
Before we go, it's just weird now that I am learning to trust and let go and allow, because I wasn't really going through anything But before the show got started, I was on the phone and had my camera on. I could hear you vibing like, wait till Jaris gets on to see us. Hey, that is what I needed. You had no idea. Our conversations are not planned. We just get over here and talk. So you all are helping me. You, of course, you know this, but probably more than you know.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm certainly glad that that's just me. Like, I just show up and I'm like, where's Jaris? I'm playing this song. I want him to dance with me. You know what I mean? Like, this is real. This is real. We don't plan any of this.
It's the real deal. For anybody watching, this is the real deal.
We are walking through this journey with Jaris, like side by side. So, you want to get on board, get on board.
Get on board.
I'm glad that we came before alcohol tonight. That's really, really a big thing, honestly. That says a lot.
Yeah, it does.
All right, world. We're going to get out of here. It's been a long day.
I got up at 4:30. It's been a long day.
And we'll be up at 4:30 again.
And I'm psyched for tomorrow.
Right. Thank you all for joining us.
Tomorrow's going to be a long day.
A long, good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.